currently reading The Legend of the Wars of Montrose by Sir Walter Scott. And I particularly enjoyed reading this because it's a fairly short novel. And it quickly gets into the action. I do recommend probably cutting the first few chapters if you just want to get to the action, and probably start at chapter 4 or 5. But it's a really short novel, so there's going to be no problems with it, except some of the accents, the Scottish dialect. You may struggle with that, so forgive me if I do get some of it wrong. Anyway, I'm just going to start here at chapter 6. I also want to read some of chapter 5, but the dialect I could stumble with chapter 5. But we'll try this. So this is Tales of My Landlord 3, Volume 3, A Legend of the Wars of Montrose by Sir Walter Scott, Chapter 6. Comic events cast their shadows before. Campbell. At an early hour in the morning, the guests of the castle sprung from their repose, and after a moment's private conversation with his attendants, Lord Menteith addressed the soldier, who was seated in a corner burnishing his corselet with wrought stone and chamois leather, while he hummed the old song in honour of the victorious Gustavus Adolphus. When the cannon are roaring and bullets are flying, the lad that would have honour, boys must never fear dying. Captain Dalgetty, said Lord Menteith, the time is come that we must part, or become comrades in service. Not before breakfast, I hope, said Captain Dalgetty. I should have thought, replied his lordship, that your garrison was victualled for 3 days at least. I still have some stowage left for beef and bannocks, said the captain, and I never miss a favourable opportunity of renewing my supplies. But, said Lord Menteith, no judicious commander allows either flags of truce or neutrals to remain in his camp longer than is prudent, and therefore we must know your mind exactly, according to which you shall either have a safe conduct to depart in peace, or be welcome to remain with us. Truly, said the captain, that being the case, I will not attempt to protract the capitulation by a counterfeited parley, a thing excellently practised by Sir James Ramsay at the siege of Hanoi, in the year of God 1636, but I will frankly own that if I like your pay as well as your provant and your company, I care not how soon I take the oath to your colours. Our pay, said Lord Menteith, must at present be small, since it is paid out of the common stock raised by the few amongst us who can command some funds. As major and adjunct, I dare not promise Captain Dalgetty more than $half a day. The devil take all halves and quarters, said the captain, were it in my opinion. I could no more consent to the halving of that dollar than the woman in the judgment of Solomon to the disseverance of the child of her bowels. The parallel will scarce hold, Captain Dalgetty, for I think you would rather consent to the dividing of the dollar than giving it up entire to your competitor. However, in the way of arrears, I may promise you the other $half at the end of the campaign. Ah, these arrearages, said Captain Dalgetty, that are always promised and always go for nothing. Spain, Austria and Sweden all sing one song. Oh, for long life to the Hogan Mogans. If they were no officers or soldiers, they were good paymasters. And yet, my lord, if I could but be made certiorate that my natural hereditament of Drumthwacket had fallen into possession of any of these looms of covenanters who could be, in the event of our success, made a traitor of, I have so much value that for that fertile and pleasant spot that I would e'en take on with you for the campaign. I can resolve Captain Dalgetty's question, said Sibold, Lord Menteith's second command, for if his estate of Drumthwacket be, as I conceive, the long waste moor so called, that lies 5 miles south of Aberdeen, I can tell him it was lately purchased by Elias Strachan, as rank and rebel as ever swore the covenant. The crop-eared hound said Captain Dalgetty in a rage. What the devil gave him the assurance to purchase the inheritance of a family of 400 years standing? Cynthius orarum velet, as we used to say at Marischal College. That is to say, I will pull him out of my father's house by the ears. And so, my Lord Menteith, I am yours, hand and sword, body and soul, till death do us part, or to the end of the next campaign, whichever event shall first come to pass. And I, said the young nobleman, rivet the bargain by a month's pay in advance. That is more than necessary, said Dalgetty, pocketing the money, however. But now I must go down, look after my war saddle and abuslements, and see that Gustavus has had his morning, and tell him we have taken new service. There goes your precious recruit, said Lord Menteith to Anderson, as the captain left the room. I fear we shall have little credit of him. He is a man of the times, however, said Anderson, and without such we should hardly be able to carry on our enterprise. Let us go down, answered Lord Menteith, and see how our muster is likely to thrive, for I hear a good deal of bustle in the castle. When they entered the hall, the domestics keeping modestly in the background, morning greetings passed Lord Menteith, Angus Macaulay and his English guests, while Alan, occupying the same settle which he had filled the preceding evening, paid no attention whatever to anyone. Old Donald hastily rushed into the apartment. A message from Vic Alistair Moore. He is coming up in the evening. With how many attendants? Said Macaulay. Some 25 or 30, said Donald, his ordinary retinue. Shake down plenty of straw in the great barn, said the laird. Another servant here stumbled hastily in, announcing the expected arrival of Sir Hector Maclean, who is arriving with a large following. Put them in the malt kiln, said Macaulay, and keep the breadth of the Middenstein between them and the Macdonalds. They are but unfriends to each other. Donald now re-entered, his visage considerably lengthened. The Teals and the folk, he said. The Highlanders are astir, I think. Evan Dew of Lochiel will be here in an hour, with Lord Ken's how many gillies? Into the great barn with them besides the Macdonalds, said the laird. More and more chiefs were announced, the least of whom would have accounted it derogatory to his dignity to stir without a retinue of 6 or 7 persons. To every new annunciation, Angus Macaulay answered by naming some place of accommodation. The stable, the loft, the cowhouse, the sheds, every domestic office was destined for the night to some hospitable purpose or accommodation. At length the arrival of MacDougall of Lorne, after all his means of accommodations were exhausted, reduced him to some perplexity. What the devil is to be done with Donald, said he. The great barn would hold 50 more, if they would lie heads and thraws, but there would be drawn dirks among them, which should lie uppermost, and so we should have bloody puddings before morning. What needs all this? Said Alan, starting up, and coming forward with the stern abruptness of his usual manner. Are the jail today of softer flesh or whiter blood than our fathers were? Knock the heads out of the cask of Oscabar. Let that be their night gear, their plaids, their bedclothes, and the blue sky their canopy, and the heather their couch. Come 1,000 more, and they would not quarrel on the broad heath for want of room. Alan is right, said his brother. It is very odd how Alan, who between ourselves, said he to Musgrave, is a little wopf, seems at times to have more sense than us all put together. Observe him now. Yes, continued Alan, fixing his eyes with a ghastly stare upon the opposite side of the hall. They may well begin as they are to end. Many a man will sleep this night upon the heath, that when the Martimas wind shall blow, shall lie there stark enough, and reck little of cold or lack of covering. Do not forspeak of us, brother, said Angus. That is not lucky. And what luck is there then? And what luck is it then that you expect? Said Alan. And straining his eyes until they almost started from their sockets, he fell with a convulsive shudder into the arms of Donald and his brother, who, knowing the nature of his fits, had come near to prevent his fall. They seated him upon a bench and supported him until he came to himself and was about to speak. For God's sake, Alan, said his brother, who knew the impression his mystical words were likely to make upon many of the guests, say nothing to discourage us. Am I he who discourages you? Said Alan. Let every man face his weird as I shall face mine. That which must come will come, and we shall stride gallantly over many a field of victory ere we reach yon fatal slaughter place, or tread yon sable scaffolds. What slaughter place? What scaffolds? Exclaimed several voices, for Alan's renown as a seer was generally established in the Highlands. You will know that but too soon, answered Alan. Speak to me no more. I am weary of your questions. He then pressed his hand against his brow, rested his elbow upon his knee, and sunk into a deep reverie. Send for Annot Lyle and the harp, said Angus in a whisper to his servant, and let those gentlemen follow me who do not fear a Highland breakfast. All accompanied their hospitable landlord, excepting only Lord Menteith, who lingered in one of the deep embrasures formed by the windows of the hall, and at Lyle shortly after glided into the room, not ill described by Lord Menteith as being the lightest and most fairest figure that ever trod the turf by moonlight. Her stature considerably less than the ordinary size of woman, gave her the appearance of extreme youth, insomuch that although she was near 18, she might have passed for 4 years younger. Her figure, hands and feet were formed upon a model of exquisite symmetry with the size and likeness of her person, so that Titania herself could scarce have found a more fitting representative. Her hair was a dark shade of the colour usually termed flaxen, whose cluttering ringlets suited admirably with her fair complexion, and with the playful yet simple expression of her features. When we add to these charms that Arnott, in orphan state, seems the gayest and happiest of maidens, the reader must allow us to claim for her the interest of almost all who looked on her. In fact, it was impossible to find a more universal favourite, and she often came among the rude inhabitants of the castle, as Alan himself, in a poetical mood, expressed it, like a sunbeam on a sullen sea, communicating to all others the cheerfulness that filled her own mind. Annot, such as we have described her, smiled and blushed when, on entering the apartment, Lord Menteith came from his place of retirement and kindly wished her good morning. And good morning to you, my lord, she returned, extending her hand to her friend. We have seldom seen you of late at the castle, and now I fear it is with no peaceful purpose. At least, let me not interrupt your harmony, Annot, said Lord Menteith, though my arrival may breed discord elsewhere. My cousin Alan needs the assistance of your voice and music. My preserver, said Annot Lyle, has a right to my poor exertions, and you too, my lord, you too are my preserver, and were the most active to save a life that is worthless enough, unless it can benefit my protectors. So saying, she sat down at a little distance upon the bench on which Alan Macaulay was placed, and tuning her clarisac, a small harp, about 30 inches in height, she accompanied it with her voice. The air was an ancient Gaelic melody, and the words, which were supposed to be very old, were in the same language, but we subjoin a translation of them by Secundus Macpherson, Esquire of Glenforgen, which, although submitted to the fetters of the English rhythm, we trust will be found nearly as genuine as the version of Ossian by his celebrated namesake. I'll read this rather than try and sing it. Birds of omen dark and foul, night crow, raven, bat and owl, leave the sick man to his dream. All night long he heard your scream. Haste to cave and ruined tower, ivy tod or dingle bower, there to wink and mop, for hark, in the mid-air sings the lark. Hie to moorish gills and rocks, prowling wolf and wily fox, hie you fast, nor turn your view, though the lamb bleats to the ewe. Couch your train and speed your flight, safety parts with parting night. And on distant echo borne comes the hunter's early horn. The moon's wan crescent scarcely gleams. Ghost-like she fades in morning beams. Hence each peevish imp and fay that scares the pilgrim on his way. Quench, Kelpie, quench in bog and fen, thy torch that cheats benighted men. The dance is o'er, the rain is done, and Benny Glow hath seen the sun. Wild thoughts that sinful dark and deep o'erpower the passive mind in sleep, pass from the slumbering souls away, like night mist from the brow of day. Foul hag, whose blasted visage grim smothers the pulse, unnerves the limb, spur thy dark palfrey and begone, thou darest not face the godlike sun. As the strain proceeded, Alan Macaulay gradually gave signs of recovering his presence of mind and attaching to objects around him. The deep-knit furrows of his brow relaxed and smoothed themselves, and the rest of his features, which had seemed contorted with internal agony, relapsed into a more natural state. When he raised his head and sat upright, his countenance, though still deeply melancholy, was divested of its wildness and ferocity, and in its composed state, although by no means handsome, the expression of his features was striking, manly, and even noble. His thick brown eyebrows, which had hitherto been drawn close together, were now slightly separated and in the natural state, and his grey eyes, which had rolled and flashed from under them with an unnatural and portentous gleam, now recovered a steady and determined expression. "Thank God," he said, after sitting silent for about a minute, until the very last sounds of the harp had ceased to vibrate. "My soul is no longer darkened. The mist has passed from my spirit." "You owe thanks, Cousin Alan," said Lord Menteith, coming forward, "to Annet Lyle, as well as to Heaven, for this happy change in your melancholy mood." "My noble Cousin Menteith," said Alan, rising and greeting him very respectfully, as well as kindly, "has known my unhappy circumstances so long, that his kindness will require no excuses for my being thus late in bidding him welcome to the castle." We are two old acquaintances, Alan," said Lord Menteith, "and two good friends to stand on the ceremonial of outward greeting, but here will be half the Highlands today, and you know, with our mountain chief's ceremony must not be neglected. What will you give little Annet for making you fit company to meet Evan Dhu? And I know how many bonnets and feathers, and I know not how many bonnets and feathers." "What will he give me?" said Annet, smiling. "Nothing less, I hope, than the best ribbon at the Fair of Doon." "The Fair of Doon, Annet," said Alan sadly. "There will be bloody work before that day, and I may never see it, but you have well reminded me of what I have long intended to do." Having said this, he left the room. "Should he talk long in this manner?" said Lord Menteith. "You must keep your harp in tune, my dear Annet." "I hope not," said Annet anxiously. "This fit has been a long one, and probably will not soon return. It is fearful to see a mind, naturally generous and affectionate, inflicted by this constitutional malady." As she spoke in a low and confidential tone, Lord Menteith naturally drew close and stooped forward that he might the better catch the sense of what she said. When Alan suddenly entered the apartment, they naturally drew back from each other with a manner expressive of consciousness, as if surprised in a conversation which they wished to keep secret from him. This did not escape Alan's observation. He stopped short at the door of the apartment. His brows were contracted, his eyes rolled. But it was only the paroxysm of a moment. He passed his broad, sinewy hand across his brow, as if to obliterate those signs of emotion, and advanced towards Anna, holding in his hand a very small box made of oak wood, curiously inlaid. "I take you to witness," he said, cousin Menteith, "that I give this box and its contents to Annette Lyle. It contains a few ornaments that belonged to my poor mother, of trifling value, you may guess, for the wife of a Highland laird has seldom a rich jewel case." "But these ornaments," said Annette Lyle, gently and timidly refusing the box, "belong to the family. I cannot accept." "They belong to me alone, Annette," said Alan, interrupting her. "They were my mother's dying bequest. They are all I can now call my own, except my plaid and my claymore. Take them, therefore. They are to me valueless trinkets, and keep them for my sake, should I never return from these wars." So saying, he opened the case and presented it to Anna. "If," said he, "they are of any value, dispose of them for your own support. When this house has been consumed with hostile fire, and can no longer afford you protection, but keep one ring in memory of Alan, who has done to requite your kindness, if not all he wished, at least all he could." Annette Lyle, endeavouring in vain to restrain the gathering tears, when she said, "One ring, Alan, I will accept from you as a memorial of your goodness to a poor orphan, but do not press me to take more, for I cannot and will not accept a gift of such disproportioned value." "Make your choice then," said Alan. "Your delicacy may be well founded. The others shall assume a shape in which they may be more useful to you." "Think not of it," said Anna, choosing from the contents of the casket a ring, apparently the most trifling in value which it contained. "Keep them for your own, or for your brother's bride. But, good heavens," she said, interrupting herself and looking at the ring, "what is this that I have chosen?" Alan hastened to look upon it, with eyes of gloomy apprehension. It bore, in enamel, a death's head with 2 crossed daggers. When Alan recognised the device, he uttered a sigh so deep that she dropped the ring from her hand, which rolled upon the floor. Lord Menteith picked it up and returned it to the terrified Anna. "I take God to witness," said Alan, "that your hand, young lord, and not mine, has again delivered to her this ill-omened gift. It was the mourning ring worn by my mother in memorial of her murdered brother." "I fear no omens," said Anna, smiling through her tears, "and nothing coming through the hands of my 2 patrons, so she was wont to call Lord Menteith and Alan, can bring bad luck to the poor orphan." She put the ring on her finger, and, turning to her harp, sung to a lively air the following verses of one of the fashionable songs of the period, which had found its way, marked as it was with the quaint hyperbolical taste of King Charles's time, for some court masque to the wilds of Perthshire. "Gaze not upon the stars, fond sage, in them no influence lies. To read the fate of youth or age, look on my Helen's eyes. Yet, rash astrologer, refrain, too dearly would be won the prescience of another's pain, if purchased by thine own." "She is right, Alan," said Lord Menteith, "and this end of an old song is worth all we shall gain by our attempt to look into futurity." "She is wrong, my lord," said Alan sternly, "though you, who treat with lightness the warnings I have given you, may not live to see the event of the omen. Laugh not so scornfully," he added, interrupting himself, "or rather laugh on as loud and as long as you will. Your term of laughter will find a pause ere long." "I care not for your vision, Alan," said Lord Menteith, "however short my lifespan. The eye of no Highland seer can see its termination." "For heaven's sake," said Annette Lyle, interrupting him, "you know his nature, and how little he can endure." "Fear me not," said Alan, interrupting her. "My mind is now constant and calm. But for you, young lord," he said, turning to Lord Menteith, My eye has sought you through fields of battle, where highlanders and lowlands lay strewn as thick as ever the rooks sat on those ancient trees, pointing to a rookery which was seen from a window. My eye sought you, but your corpse was not there. My eye sought you among a train of unresisting and disarmed captives, drawn up within the bounding walls of an ancient and rugged fortress. Flash after flash, platoon after platoon, the hostile shot fell among them, but you were not among their ranks. Scaffolds were prepared, blocks were arranged, sawdust was spread, the priest was ready with his book, the headsman with his axe, but there too my eye found you not. The gibbet then, I suppose, must be my doom, said Lord Menteith. I wish they had spared me the halter, were it but for the dignity of the peerage. He spoke this scornfully, yet not without a sort of curiosity, and a wish to receive an answer, for the desire of prying into futurity frequently had some influence even on the minds of those who disavow all belief in the possibility of such predictions. Your rank, my lord, will suffer no dishonour in your person, or by the manner of your death. 3 times have I seen a Highlander plant his dirk in your bosom, and such will be your fate. I wish you would describe him to me, said Lord Menteith, and I shall save him the trouble of fulfilling your prophecy, if his blade be passable to sword or pistol. Your weapons, said Alan, will avail you little, nor can I give you the information you desire. The face of the vision has been ever averted from me. So be it then, said Lord Menteith, and let it rest in the uncertainty in which your augury has placed it. I shall die not the less merrily among plaids and dirks and kilts today. It may be so, said Alan, and it may be. You do well to enjoy these moments, which to me are poisoned by auguries of future evil. But I, he continued, I repeat to you, that this weapon, touching the hilt of the dirk which you wore, carries your fate. In the meanwhile, said Lord Menteith, you, Alan, have frightened the blood from the cheeks of Annet Lyle. Let us leave this discourse, my friends, and go to see what we both understand, the progress of our military preparations. They joined Angus Macaulay and his English guests, and in the military discussions which immediately took place, Alan showed a clearness of mind, strength of judgment, and precision of thought totally inconsistent with the mystical light in which his character has been hitherto exhibited.